All right, NAI football fans, welcome back to another episode of the NAIF Ball Live Show. This is week 6. We missed week 5. I was out with getting a wisdom tooth removed, but I have recovered and am doing just fine, as you can see in the wonderful smiling picture below me. My co-host Cory. Cory, how you doing, man?
Man, I'm fantastic. I'm sitting at my own desk in my new house. The green screen is up behind me, just waiting on the internet to come alive at some point, and we're almost back to normal.
Yeah, almost back to normal. Just gotta get the internet working at your place, and we'll be smooth sailing. But much like Corey's setup will be once the internet's working at his house, smooth sailing is what UEN Urban Edge Network is all about. They are partners of NAIF Ball this year. They've been doing some awesome stuff across the league, streaming some of the best games around the country, just making NAI football that much more accessible and doing a great job. There's a lot of awesome streams being featured there. They're doing games of the week. They're doing great coverage. They're really getting the product out there, and we are super excited to be partnering with them. And just a reminder to you guys to check out Urban Edge Network. Not only watch your favorite games on there of your favorite teams in the NAI, but also make sure to catch the NAIFBALL live show there every single week. Except for last week, but that was obviously an exception. So let's not waste any time. There was a lot of interesting things that happened this past week, and we'll kick it off with St. Francis, Indiana taking down Taylor. Both very good squads receiving votes in our polls. I know I had St. Francis ranked in the top 25 in mine. Very much a prove-it game for both these teams to see where they're at. And it is St. Francis, Indiana, scoring 49 points in a 14-point win over Taylor. Joshua Kolka having a wonderful day through the air, 14 completions for 295 yards and 5 touchdowns, each thrown to a different receiver. And on top of that, Azaria Wallace going for 137 and a touchdown, and almost 50% on third and fourth down is going to get it done for you on offense. Cory, this was pretty much a shootout. There was a lot of fun stuff happening here. What did you see in this one?
Yeah, if you look at the Taylor side with Alex Hamburgy, one, that's not Damon Hockett there. Damon Hockett threw one pass. Not sure if there's an injury there that precluded him from going, but 2 interceptions, 2-score game. If you're gonna be loose on defense, like Taylor was a little bit in this one, you got to be good with the football. Taylor was not. This is one of those where there are several like this. This is one of the more offensively minded of our very close games that we had. It's really hard in some of these to figure out exactly what separated these two squads. In this one, it's turnovers. Turnovers will kill you every time. Oh no, man. In this one, it feels like we're just sort of waiting for the St. Francis Marion game to figure out who's going to be the top dog in this division.
Yeah, for sure. And I think Taylor is definitely a good contest for them. Like you said, though, it was cut and dry, like a 2 touchdown win. Your quarterback for Taylor throws 2 interceptions. That'll do it. Nathan Parker had a great day on the ground for Taylor as well. Just a lot of offense, a lot of points, a lot of yards, a lot of good stuff happening for both these teams. Minus the turnovers for Taylor, it's going to be interesting to see where both squads go from here. But not nearly as close of a game. Up next is the Dork Defenders continuing to roll over a Briarcliff team that was receiving votes after defeating Mount Marty the week prior. Dort steamrolled Briarcliff 51-0 to remain undefeated. Dort, the clear-cut number 2 in the G-Pack right now, might be number 1 depending on how that game against Morningside will eventually go. But yeah, Dort just, so many good things going for them on the offensive side of the ball, but on the defense, I feel like is where it really stood out. Holding Briarcliff to 0 points in what has been a pretty decent offense for most of the season, totaling 4 sacks, 10 tackles for loss, 3 forced fumbles, an interception, 8 pass breakups, and 2 QB hurries. Brock Saya and Briarcliff could not really get much done against Dort.
As the one voter who had actually voted for Briarcliff and thus the reason why they're receiving votes, honestly, as of last week, and it only got worse this week, trying to find some teams to plug the holes at the bottom of the top 25 hole was difficult. And so I found one who only had one loss through 5 games. So I mean, we've talked about the GPAC on and off, and we're going to talk about it more later on. But you mentioned it. It's a weird year in the GPAC where you've got Morningside and Dort, who are kind of undecided, but we think that Morningside is in its own category of elite. We think Dort is right there in extremely good, and then the other teams in the GPAC are just a miasma of okay. And it's super strange that there's no third team that's even very good between the rest of the, what are they at? Let's see, that'd be the other 13 teams. Yeah, because they're at 15. It's weird not to see that, but yeah, Dort absolutely. For me, winning with panache, a 51-point win over a one-loss Briarcliff team, is in which Briarcliff's only prior loss was Morningside.
Yep.
So it's not bad. But winning with panache is always good for me watching a team and moving them up over other teams that may not have won as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think with the GPAC, it'll be interesting too. You mentioned not having a third team. I think Concordia just by default is that team right now. Considering they're still in the polls, we haven't really seen them play the tough slate of this conference.
Unproven.
But
they haven't even played Northwestern.
Yeah. But I still think that's a very solid squad, and there's something to be said for getting momentum as your season continues. But yeah, I know what you mean with it. It usually feels like there's kind of 3 teams up there, and then the middle of the pack's a bit slimmer, but everybody's kind of crammed into the middle this year. It's going to be interesting to see how it all shakes out. Another game that was on our radar this weekend that delivered, I would say, would be Campbellsville versus Cumberland's. Campbellsville moves to 5-0 on the season, pushing for a top 10 spot. Jet Engel going 15 for 20, 256 yards and 3 touchdowns. But Trey Bass, you want to talk about a guy who's put himself not just in these all-conference conversations, but potentially player of the year with the pace that he is on. At running back, going for 17 carries, 201 yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground, and also catching 6 passes for 115 yards and 2 touchdowns. Cumberland's ultimately puts up a good fight on offense. Drew Gregg throws for over 400 yards and 4 touchdowns, which is really impressive. DK Edwards catching 5 of those for 124 yards and a touchdown. But it's hard to keep up with a guy who puts up 5 touchdowns on his own in different phases of the game.
And credit the Campbellsville defense with 10 tackles for loss and 12 pass breakups. Sometimes you'll get a defense that you'll see a ton of sacks and tackles for loss and not as many pass breakups. But this is a team that was doing their run fits, that was getting after Drew Gregg, maybe not getting the sacks, but punishing behind the line with the 10 tackles for loss, but also with that defensive secondary able to paw the ball away with 12 pass breakups. That's a really good effort and a quality effort from both edges of your defense there for Campbellsville, honestly. And no, I won't go there. I think we'll keep marching because I'll reserve that comment for later on when we go over another game.
All right. Well, you mentioned the GPAC. We're not going to go too long without talking about them because next up, oh, just kidding. I lied. I read the list wrong, Corey. The list wrong, Corey. My bad. But we do stay in Campbellsville's sphere of influence, I should say, as Lindsey Wilson takes down Georgetown convincingly, 37-13 to stay 5-0 in the season. Lindsey Wilson has been extremely impressive, and Devontae Saunders going for 153 yards and 3 touchdowns on the ground. The team was operating for Lindsey Wilson at a clip of 11 for 15 on third and fourth down conversions. That's almost a full 75%, 73.33 repeating, which is extremely impressive. Garrick Slunaker going 17 for 29, 168 yards and a pick. Not putting up the touchdowns you'd like to see from him. Also turning the ball over, not great. Also going 4 for 13 on third and fourth down. When Lindsey Wilson is operating at that clip on offense is certainly not going to be ideal. I think Georgetown is still a very good team, but I think this Lindsey Wilson team is just on another level right now, Corey.
Now I will say the other half of what I was saying. I think that Lindsey Wilson Campbellsville game that's coming up is going to be an absolute clash of titans.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Because what we've seen from these two teams, like if I were ESPN College Game Day on the NAIA level, I'm going to Lindsey Wilson Campbellsville because Lindsey Wilson is an elite team. They have shown it this year. I am not afraid to go around the E word with Lindsey Wilson.
Mm-hmm.
I believe Campbellsville might be on the brink of being elite. They're just on the edge of it. But Lindsey Wilson is putting people, they're putting them down in ways that show championship level effort.
Yep.
It's not just winning, it's winning and grinding your opponent into the ground. And that's what they did to Georgetown. That's not a bad Georgetown team. But Lindsey Wilson had full control of the game on both offense and defense, had the mastery of the game on both sides. This was never really a contest at Georgetown, I believe. So this is one where we look at these two teams that we just looked at between Lindsey and Campbellsville, and that's going to be an absolute war.
Yeah. And for the top spot in the conference, still less. Two teams that we might not have predicted to do so, or many people would have, especially just with the way the conference is built this season. But yeah, Lindsey Wilson is a wagon, I think is the term you could use to describe them right now. Georgetown will be just fine. I'm not too worried about them, but certainly not going to be in contention for the top spot in the conference this year. Has been pretty solidified, especially after this result. So now I will make sure I'm reading my notes correctly. We will go back to the GPAC because we can't go that long without talking about them. And what do you figure, Corey? Northwestern with a 2-3 record after falling to Hastings 10-9. The only touchdown of the game was scored by defensive back Wyatt Ryan of Hastings on a pick six. I don't really know what to say about this besides I'm pretty speechless over this result just because we talked about Northwestern kind of being down a rung, but they seem to have let it slip a bit further than they probably would have liked. What do you see here?
Matt, I didn't get to watch too much on this game, but I'm going to tell you this reeks of one of those Orange City Saturdays. You know them way too well when the winds are whipping around DeValwa Stadium, and it is nigh impossible to pass. It's even more impossible to kick the darn football. So the fact that Giovanni Kabongo got a 58-yarder is a minor miracle. But
yeah, absolutely.
The fact that you had to trot your kicker out there 5 times, including one where you're at the, dear Lord, what is that? 33 is 50. So 58 would be, you're at the 41.
Yep.
You're trotting your kicker out there at the 41 on one of those attempts. The fact you're having to trot your kicker out there 5 times.
Uh-huh.
If he makes all those field goals, obviously it's a 12-10 win and everyone goes home happy. But if it's one of those days in Orange City, you got to make sure you're able to run the football. And neither team was, honestly, and that's why I said it was probably a win-whippy game, because both Dalton Armbruster and Gardner Case are getting over 20 attempts. They're both getting under 90 yards total production. Casey was actually the leading receiver as well, I believe, with 3 receptions, 46 yards. Yeah, no, this totally reeks of a game where it's weather affected.
Yeah. And if nothing else, it was just that both defenses were able to capitalize on that too, right? Both running backs being held to minimal yardage in ways we haven't really seen from Northwestern, especially in recent memory. 20 attempts for 48 yards is under, that's like what, 2.4 yards a carry, I think? Something like that.
That sounds right.
And that's just not gonna get it done. Obviously, hitting a long of 58 on a field goal is wonderful, but you can only put so much blame on a kicker who's expected to be your only form of scoring throughout the entire game with where your offense is setting him up.
And I'll put it like this: looking at the box score, Northwestern was 1 of 1 in the red zone with a field goal. Hastings was 1 of 2 in the red zone with the field goal. So not only are you not scoring, you're not even getting inside the 20 to actually put yourself in a place to get good damage done.
I mean, the ball wasn't really moving at all, like on either side for either team, which I can imagine made this really exciting to watch. I watched a good chunk of this game, and it was... I'm glad I like defensive football. I'll say that much. Because if I didn't, I don't know if I would have been able to watch it for as long as I did. But yeah, and we talked about Northwestern and kind of the season they're having, but hey, credit to Hastings. This is a big win for them. It's probably been a minute since they've beaten this Northwestern team. Getting a huge win there against a team that has had your number for a while is always big. So congratulations to Hastings there for the win and moving above Northwestern in the standings. The GPAC standings are very weird to look at right now, Corey. I will tell you that much. There are teams and logos and spots that I never imagined they would be. And yet here we are, talking about a 2-3 Northwestern team. So, the road from here for Northwestern won't get much easier. This conference is always a tough slate. But yeah, if you're Hastings, you can kind of springboard off this thing and see how far you can go, especially with the middle of the conference so bunched up. Maybe you can get a couple more impressive wins in there. But another impressive win was the number 1 team in the country. It's Grandview. They had a very decisive 41-9 win over a surging William Penn team to hand the Statesmen the first loss of the season. And this is definitely a case of William Penn is still a very good football team. You could definitely make the case that in the poll this week they could still be top 25. It is just Grandview at the end of the day. Jackson Wary going 16 for 25, 175 yards, 4 touchdowns, and a rushing touchdown to boot, going 47.06% on 3rd and 4th down. And Sterling Ramsey, passing-wise, did not have the best day. I think the Grandview defense was just on full display. Usually, this season has been pretty potent. William Penn offense limited them to not that many yards, forced 3 picks on Ramsey to no touchdowns thrown. He did rush for a touchdown, but yeah, Grandview just proving time and time again this season that they are the top dog in the NAIA.
William Penn coming off 2 top 25 wins over a Baker team that was hanging around 1 week, and had gone through Destin Loring for a ton of their offense. Grandview and the defense, highly vaunted defense every year, comes out shuts down that William Penn offense. And I, like you said, I don't think there's any shame in this loss. I think this solidifies, though, the fact that basically what we've talked about off air, Matt, is that there are 6 or 7 truly elite teams, and there are 9 or 10 extraordinarily good teams. Below that, it can be a crapshoot, but Grandview at 1, William Penn at 21, those are orders of magnitude in the NAI this year in terms of where you are. And I, for one, did not penalize Penn a whole lot off of this loss just because you're not seeing a ton of teams, especially in that 17 to 25 region of the NAI, really distance themselves in making this third striation within the top 25. I think William Penn, given what the rest of the NAI is this year, is still a top 25 team easily.
Yeah, they're at like 26 for me this week. I think I put Mid-American Nazarene at 24, which I'm sure will get a bit of backlash, which I can understand. But just the nature of losing in this fashion is never great for you. I'm sure, like, William Penn is 100% going to rebound with the way they've been playing this season. I don't doubt they will be back in my top 25 the following week, as long as they hold serve. But yeah, this was just domination from Grandview, outright. In every sense of the word, and this is a team that's probably making another run at the national title. Like, just calling it how it is, calling it how I see it, man. This team is rolling again. I guess not really to anybody's surprise, but like seeing it in action now that we're midway through the season is like, whoa, okay, like they're still here. And perhaps not quite as established as a team that you'd say is here. But Florida Memorial is here, Cory. They are here, and they get a big win over Southeastern to move to 2-2 on the season. Back-to-back weeks, they have grabbed really impressive wins. 28-23 is the final score of this one, and ultimately, the final drive of the game, marching it down the field. Was it a 2-minute drill in this one? I think it was.
Yeah, it was on this one. Florida Memorial pulls it out. It's their second win over a top 25 team in as many weeks, going back, beating Cumberland last week. And Reagan over at in the Sun Conference texted me. I was already asleep. Texted me, I told you about Florida Memorial. And look, they have lost to Clark Atlanta. And they have a close loss to Reinhardt. At this point, the quality of your NAI wins, to me, you have to be giving Florida Memorial some love. Again, it's very similar to the GPAC here in that you have Kaiser, who is your quote-unquote elite team, your top-tier team, your top shelf.
Yep.
St. Thomas is right behind them, probably in the same kind of striation as Southeastern. Florida Memorial, unlike the GPAC, has carved its niche out as the third tier team that if you get them to, if they can play consistently, will be able to play with anyone else in the division, including Kaiser.
Yep, absolutely. It's an extremely impressive win for them. And the way they've been rolling, like, I gave them respect in my poll this week. I put them at 23, I'm pretty sure. This is just straight up stringing 2 wins back-to-back like that in the fashion that they have against very quality opponents. I can't ignore that. And especially when you have Taekwon Wiggin going 15 for 27, almost 300 yards passing and a touchdown, and also Jalen Hawley catching 6 passes for 111 yards. Ultimately, your offense also getting it done on 3rd and 4th down, 10 for 18, 56 rounded up percent on 3rd and 4th down is super impressive. They are finding ways to win these games and ultimately finding a way to shut down Southeastern, who up until this point in the season has kind of just been rolling. So really, really big win for Florida Memorial to get. And it's going to be interesting to see the ramifications on both these team seasons from this one. So that's all we got for games from last week. So let's take a moment, step back, and listen to a word from our sponsors at AdCraft.
Want to create and sell custom merch for your team or business? That's exciting, but where do you begin? How much inventory should you order? How do you distribute orders? AdCraft has your answers. Streamline the way you offer custom merch by utilizing our risk-free web store service. We ship directly to each customer, and we have the fastest turnaround in the game. Raise funds for your team or get merch to your employees and patrons. Contact AdCraft today and let's bring your merch to life.
And that's exactly what AdCraft does. They make wonderful apparel. They help set up your shop so that you can worry about doing all the football stuff and coaching and important things you want to get back to when you're running your program. You don't have to worry about shipping. You don't have to worry about sorting orders. All of that can be taken care of by AdCraft. They are an NAIA born and bred brand, and we love working with them. We've been working with them for years now. We highly recommend you check them out. And as always, we thank them for being proud partners of this show we got going. So now it's time to make everybody mad, Cory. It's that time. We're going to talk about the top 25 media poll for this week. Like you've kind of been hinting at, it's kind of a nightmare when you get to 20 and beyond. There's a lot of we don't know going on.
I am a little annoyed. Go ahead and flip over. I am a little annoyed that Southeastern's still at 23 and Florida Memorial is just outside receiving votes.
Yeah,
that bothers me. I think it'll rectify itself if Florida Memorial keeps winning. I think that's the only thing that really bothers me terribly badly about this poll. I mean, right now you can see the striations. Everyone from Grandview to Lindsay is just chef's kiss.
yep.
Everyone from Montana Western down through anywhere between McPherson and Carroll is kind of on a different level. And then it's just sort of from 19 on, it's pin to tail on the donkey, and see if you can find some guys that impressed you in the past week, and hope someone can string a couple wins together, because it's been a difficult spot for us to be able to put teams in place from kind of that 19 to 25 range.
Yeah, and I think too it's just hard because we're still at a point in the season where like this 20 plus range is teams with one loss who have looked really good but haven't faced competition, or they're teams like Georgetown who have lost multiple high profile games but like are still very clearly a good team. We're still not quite at the point where we know what's going on, I feel like, in that range, which is fine, because obviously there's still a whole half of the season left to go and then some. But yeah, I think Southeastern is the biggest glare, like you had mentioned. I think everything else here is pretty rock solid. You could swap William Penn and Mid-American Nazarene, like I mentioned earlier, for the head-to-head there. But everything else looks pretty good. Concordia at 17, I'm still curious to see how long that's going to last. But I think, like we had talked about earlier, they are just the de facto 3 in the GPAC right now until proven otherwise. So going to be interesting to see how that's going to continue. And I feel like Ottawa, Arizona is a team who has just been holding steady, and we haven't really heard much from them this year. But they're just kind of chilling out. They're climbing week to week just because they're taking care of business, which is really interesting to see. But yeah, you have a very legitimate field of like 12, 13 top contenders here that I'm looking at. And granted, you said that tier of like that 5 to 7 range is pretty solidified, but outside of that, you have some pretty legit teams there too.
Yeah. Go ahead and read them out, Matt.
Yeah, so first up, we got Grandview receiving all 9. Did we have 9 this week?
Yeah, we had 9 this week.
Yep, 9. All 9 first place votes, followed by Benedictine at 2, Kaiser at 3, Morningside at 4, Montana Tech at 5, Friends at 6, Lindsey Wilson at 7, Montana Western at 8, St. Thomas at 9, Marion 10, Campbellsville 11, Dordt at 12, Ottawa, Arizona at 13, Indiana Wesleyan 14, Ferguson 15, Southwestern 16, Concordia of Nebraska 17, Carroll College 18, College of Idaho at 19, Mid-American Nazarene at 20, Georgetown College at 21, Olivet Nazarene at 22, Southeastern at 23, Evangel at 24, and William Penn rounding it out at 25. Evangel also should note, I don't think we got to talk about this, won a very interesting 7-6 contest against Kansas Wesleyan to in what you could call a get-right game following the contest that they had against Friends not that long ago. So again, just 20 to like 40. There's some weird stuff happening there, man. But I think we have a good read on the top half of this poll. So yeah, pretty interesting to see. I'm excited to see how this changes from here. But you know who never changes? It's Connor Darnell, because he's fantastic at what he does. He has great designs. He makes bag tags. He makes all sorts of cool stuff. So no matter what you need in terms of graphics, maybe it's commitment posts, schedules, anything you can think of in the SID or potential, football graphics realm, Connor Darnell is your guy. He makes all the awesome stuff you see on screen for the live show each and every week in these beautiful lists and these beautiful graphics. It is all just wonderful.
And made bag tags for the home office as well.
Yeah, he's in cahoots with the home office, so he's a big deal. So make sure to check him out for your next project. I know I have like 3 bag tags from him that I mention every episode, but it's worth mentioning because they're that good. Make sure to check out our guy Connor. So now it's time to get into the players of the week. And there were a lot of really good performances, truthfully. But I think one of the guys we've talked about earlier in this episode really stood out, like I mentioned, potential player of the year conversation after a performance like this. And that's going to be Trey Bass of Campbellsville. We mentioned the stat line, 201 yards rushing, 115 yards receiving, 5 total touchdowns in what was a marquee win for Campbellsville as they continue to roll this season. I don't know if we could say anything that hasn't been said already, considering we covered this game, but we could certainly try, Cory.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you get 5 total touchdowns, you're having a day, and 300 combined yards from scrimmage is absurd. And we had a couple quarterbacks that went for over 4 bills. To me, if you're doing 200 on the ground, 100 through the receiving through the air, that is always the direction I'm going to go. We talked about in preseason. He's not really their secret weapon, but that's a good one right there.
Yep, absolutely. And moving on to our defensive player of the week is going to be out of St. Xavier University, a team I feel like we haven't gotten to talk a lot about this year. But Chris Swain getting it done with 18 tackles, a sack, a forced fumble, an interception, and 3 QB hurries. This guy was all over the field making plays at every single level for St. Xavier here. So absolutely wonderful effort. And they won this game this weekend, correct?
I honestly am not sure. I was just looking at stats on that one as I was looking through, 90 plus or 40 some odd box scores.
Yep, that's going to be a convincing 42-17 win for them over Defiance. So,
yeah, anytime you pack out the stat sheet like this, you're gonna get my player of the week. You don't have to have a billion sacks and a billion interceptions or forced fumbles, but if you're going to get 18 tackles and fill up the rest with something, you're going to win mine just about every time. That's a great, overwhelming, everywhere on the field performance.
Yeah, Absolutely. And Swain and San Xavier might be a team we're talking about a bit more as the season comes to an end. They have homecoming next week against Siena Heights, which will be an interesting contest. And they round out 3 of their last 4 games of the season at home against St. Francis, Indiana, Olivet Nazarene, and Marion to close the regular season. So we're going to learn a lot about St. Xavier when the season comes to a close, and I'm kind of excited for that gauntlet, especially when they're picking up wins in this sort of fashion. So well done to Chris Swain and the Cougars. And you know who else is great? It's the Headset app. The Headset app is absolutely wonderful because, let's face it, modern day optics and operations with headsets and getting set up on game day, whether you need it as a coach or whether you need it for broadcast or any sort of fashion, is just an absolute nightmare. Headsets are super expensive. It can be hard to hook up. So that's why the Headset app is here for you, because it's so easy to set up through your phone. You can have your AirPods in. It can be real nice and easy. They provide a bunch of private channels for you and your team, so you don't have to worry about people stealing your signals. It's just an all-around modernization of how coaches go about using headsets. And let's face it, when you're chucking headsets all the time, it's probably more convincing to have an app on your phone that will make sure that you're not throwing stuff in anger and breaking anything, which is always a good thing, which is why we appreciate the Headset app as the sponsor of this week's Play Call of the Week. Now, it certainly doesn't look like much, but that right there was in 3 overtimes to take the lead. The score ended up being 34-32, not 38-32, regardless of what the scorebook says. So deep into overtime that you're only trying 2-point conversions. That was Mayville State taking the lead against Dickinson State, who, by the way, they have not beaten in 14 years until the other day in this contest. And you see the play call there, jet sweep to the left, get the motion and defense flowing out, and then you run an option right behind it, and the quarterback gets a nice pitch out to your running back. All the running back has to do is beat the defense to the quarter, which he does, to punch it in on the 3-yard line to get it done for the Comets. The Comets defense would come back out, hold Dickinson State, force an incompletion on the following play to grab the win. And it's really interesting that we have these teams in the Frontier now, but it's the North Star teams that are beating up on each other, which I find really interesting. Obviously, a huge win for the Comets. Getting a win over Dickinson State is a big deal if you're from the North Star, just because Dickinson has been running that conference for so long now. But Cory, I tell you what, man, I can't think of a better play dialed up than that one right there.
That's a great play. Offensively, you know that you're running into a tired defense, and tired defenses make mistakes. Mm-hmm. Tired defenses don't have the eye discipline that they did in the first quarter. Look, at that point in the game, everyone wants to go home. Just everyone from the head coach on down just wants to go home. And the Mets get it done. Roll Mets here. I know Casey Willison is so jacked over this. I honestly think, I'm trying to think the last time, I don't know that I've ever seen Dickinson lose to one of the old North Star teams that was there in those last 10 years. Yeah. This is the first time I've seen that. It took the movement to the Frontier for that to happen. And Matt, the North Star, or the old North Star, succumbing to the Frontier chaos.
Yeah, it comes for everybody. No one is safe. You cannot run from it. It still arrives. Shout out to the Comets for the big overtime win there. And, with that week behind us, there's a lot of fun stuff that happened, that play included. But there's some fun things to look forward to next week as well. Florida Memorial getting their biggest test of the season against Kaiser. Now, granted, they do host Kaiser, which could make this interesting. But with the way Kaiser's been playing this year, have to imagine Florida Memorial's going to have to climb another metaphorical mountain to get that win there. But it'll be really interesting to see. And also Montana Western taking on Carroll in a classic Frontier clash. Carroll with a win here could establish themselves as a top 15 team and be looking in on a playoff spot in prime position against a Montana Western team who, beyond the Montana Tech loss to open the season, has pretty much been rolling. So what are you looking for in these ones?
Well, I did sort of mention this one earlier on in the show. Kaiser at Florida Memorial. Can Florida Memorial stay focused on the third top 25 clash in as many weeks? And they stay focused and knock off the perennial Sun favorite? It's possible.
Mm-hmm.
This is really kind of the game that I have been waiting for Kaiser. This is the first time that we will actually be able to look at Kaiser and go, are you the elite team we think you are? We haven't had a lot of opportunities to see them tested. Florida Memorial should bring a test. Whether they pass with flying colors, they just barely go with the C's, get degrees route. That will be very informative for the Sun Conference. Montana Western Carroll has every possibility to be the Frontier Chaos incarnate. It's going to be a fantastic game. You're going to see Carroll run the ball and try to shorten the game. You're going to see Palandri try to throw for 500 yards and run for 200. It's going to be fun. But, Matt, like death and taxes, there is one thing certain, and that is when we have only two top 25 matchups like this, we're going to get someone to rack up an upset. Don't know who it's going to be.
Yeah.
Someone's going to rack up an upset. Now, it's not going to be anyone in the heart of the KCAC because they've got bye weeks this week. But there's still a lot of interesting ones out there. You know, Dak West always gives Morningside trouble.
Yes, sir. We will be there, or I will be there. I have to be there. I work there, so I don't get a choice. I have to be at that one. But yeah, I'm intrigued to see how the Dak West Tigers do following a big win down at Doane in fashion we haven't seen from the squad so far, at least offensively this year.
Cumberland's at Lindsey Wilson. Should be interesting. Marion at Taylor.
Oh, that's one to keep eyes on, I think.
Is definitely one to keep eyes on. Just to kind of get an idea, is Marion the top 10 team? I think they are. Let's see. Louisiana Christian at Texas Wesleyan is another one. How bad does Texas West feel for themselves after being iffy in the top 25? They're receiving votes for us. Dakota State at Dickinson State. How bad does Dickinson feel for themselves? Dakota State has not been bad. Matt, you somehow weaseled your way out of talking about that Dakota State win over Southern Oregon, that upset win. You got out of it by having oral surgery, but ends that you will go to avoid talking about Dakota State are insane.
Look, all right. I'm not gonna say it was intentional. I'm also not gonna deny any accusation of that. So I'll just let the people decide what they think on that one.
And then the game that I don't know. No one here is probably gonna watch. Still gonna call it out anyway. A winless U-Pike team up against a first-year Rio Grande team that is also winless. someone's got to win.
Someone's got to win. And we certainly did talk about Pikeville being a decent team despite their record this season. They have a good chance to prove it here in the battle of the winless, you could say. So, yeah, a lot of there's some potential here. There's some things on the stove that could get pretty scalding hot pretty quickly this weekend. So, not that many heavy hitters on the what to watch for, but certainly enough matchups to keep your eyes on to where the 20 to 40 team range could get really messy, which is exactly what we want because that's how this works. But who's not messy and is always showing up for us when we need them the most? That is our wonderful, beautiful Cory. You want to say it? You're in the middle of saying it.
Oh, our patrons. And we have a new one that I forgot to put on the list. So he gets his own special shout out this week, and that is Daniel. Daniel, thank you.
Thank you, Daniel,
for becoming a member. I promise next week I will I'll get you on the list, and we'll make sure you get your Discord invite.
Yep, you'll be somewhere
see.
Down here.
But yeah.
So nice and cozy there at the
yep,
bottom.
Yep.
So, yep, we'll get you a nice spot there. And if you're looking at the screen right now, wondering how you can donate to the Patreon and get involved and have access to all of this content that we talk about. We talk about these games all weekend long. We're about this. And if you are also about it, I recommend scanning the QR code to be involved, join the Patreon, join the Discord, or head to patreon.com/NAIAFBALL to join this wonderful list of people who are DSU Cohn, Roger Meyer, Jeremy Vobble, Fred Christensen, Ace Wellen, Marty Siebel, Kyle Gregory, Tyler Pierce, Justin Hoffman, Steve Speakman, Brian Shake, Julianne Shager, Nate Sotebeer, Stephen Cutler, Julie Lout, Tim Burrow, Nathan Moore, Ryan, Jason Crawford, Todd Nix, Sean Chamberlain, Zach Lance, Casey Wilson, Carol C. Suggs, Chris, Derek Lars, Jason Garden, Christopher Zwiener, Joey Breckel, Coke and Nicholas, Sweet Nation, and who is not listed, but shout out Daniel. Welcome to the squad. Man, it's another week. It's another wonderful weekend ahead of us of NAI football. And there's going to be a lot of fun stuff this week, Cory. I'm excited to see how this all shakes out. And like you mentioned, we're probably going to get something stupid that happens that we will have to talk about that destroys everything in our preconceived notions of this season, as it tends to do. So let's hop into the comments here. Go Jays, Derek Smith, I see you. Could McPherson and Southwestern both make it to the playoffs in the new format? One of them would have to get an at-large bid, right, Cory?
Yeah, one of them would. I do think it's possible, especially if Southwestern's able to take care of business. Mm-hmm. Obviously right now Friends is emasculating everybody on their roster. I will point out the game against Ottawa, that's the closest they've been in a while, and that's a 3-score game.
It's true. They only put up 28 points, Cory. Only.
And this is when you're talking about an elite team, is when you only win by 3 scores and it's a squeaker. Right, but keep an eye on that Ottawa team. That Ottawa team has to play some other folks that themselves won squeakers, and it's going to get interesting. We do like what we're seeing out of Ottawa. It's hard to not improve on a 1-win season from last year with what they've got going. Mm-hmm. In terms of their administrative support. But yes, I think both of them can make it. I think there's a lot. We're still really, really early in this, which seems really weird to say at this point. But most of these divisions and conferences are just now starting conference play. So all of the prior weeks have just been us figuring out who these teams are. Now we really get to the meat of things, aside from places like the KCAC will begin divisional play. Apart from places like the GPAC that have been doing conference play all darn season long.
Yeah. Yeah.
But from this point on, it's basically we're gonna really see where the rubber meets the road.
Yeah. Absolutely. It'll be really interesting. I'm super curious to see how the KCAC specifically kind of turns out. We get a hashtag Roll Mets from Matt Herman. I see you, big dog. Roll Mets indeed. Light schedule this week from Chris. Yeah, it's like we mentioned. These are the weeks where stuff happens, unfortunately.
Yep.
Never a week off, even with a light what to watch for schedule. And then Derek Smith following up with friends. They're the best 3 teams in the KCAC, but the same division. Yeah, that's just kind of the way it's rolling this year, which is going to be unfortunate for sure one of those teams, potentially 2 of them, if things play out how we expect them to. So really curious to see how this plays along this week. I'm hoping we can start to see some sort of very early minor bracketology form this weekend, but we might not get it. It might be a couple weeks still.
Yeah.
So I don't know, Cory. You're Mr. Bracketology. You'd be able to speak on that better than I would, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I think we still have it's at least one more week, if not 2. Honestly, it's probably 2 because of the fact that the Heart and the KCAC are off.
Yep.
I need one more week of divisional play from those 2 to really get a good picture. We're just seeing divisional play starting the Frontier. Obviously in the KCAC, in the Heart, we're starting to see it. In the Mid-South, we're just starting to see it. In the Mid-States, we're just starting to see it. I think we probably need a couple of weeks to start to do it, but that may or may not stop me next week from getting froggy and start to make some way too early predictions.
For sure. So it looks like that's all we got for comments. So I think that's all we got for tonight, Cory. So without further ado, thank you all for tuning in to the NAIAFBALL show. As always, promise I won't be getting wisdom tooth surgery next week, so we should be back to our regular scheduled programming now. So until next time, we will see y'all on the Twitter feed.